US economy is dead.
That the Indian economy is a dead economy.
अमेरिका ने प्रेसिडेंट डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने एक बार ट्वीट किया था कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज अ डेड इकोनॉमी.
Do you think the stock market people are fools who have put crores of rupees in the Indian market?
डॉलर जस्ट टर्न्स टू 90
So it keeps happening. It's a matter of demand and supply.
क्योंकि पूरा जो न्यूक्लियर सेक्टर है वो गवर्नमेंट के कंट्रोल में है. इफ से दे विल डू इट प्राइवेटाइजेशन द एंटायर decision making will go to the private sector.
Not that. See, point is, it requires huge amount of investment. How many people do you think will come forward to set up nuclear reactors?
बजट प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट हो रहा है जो उसमें RBI गवर्नर्स, IAS ऑफिसर्स, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, CBDT, वहाँ से कोई लोग बाहर नहीं जा सकते, पूरे कॉन्फ्रेंस बंद रूम रहता है.
That is about the budget itself when it is being printed, when it is proofread and all that. RBI works with the government on the design of the notes. See, when Gandhi's face was taken to be in the currency notes, it was after a long bit of forensic research and all that. They said this is a very difficult face to fake.
You were the part of demonetisation.
आज मध्यरात्रि यानी 8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से वर्तमान में जारी 500 रुपए और 1000 रुपए के करेंसी नोट लीगल टेंडर नहीं रहेंगे.
Do you believe that it was the failure of the government? Today, we have with us a special guest whose career reflects the inner workings of India's entire financial system. Dattatreya Kaleji is a chartered accountant and highly respected banking and regulatory expert who has spent more than 30 years at the Reserve Bank of India. He retired as the Chief General Manager heading the Internal Audit, Inspection and Risk Assurance Department, which is one of the most powerful oversight functions of the central bank. He spent 7 years in the RBI Treasury, also served as the RBI's nominee on the board of RBL Bank and contributed to multiple RBI and Government of India committees. He continues to serve the public as the president of All India Bank Depositors Association. This conversation promises knowledge, experience and importantly, those rare insights into the banking system that very few people ever see. But before you watch the episode, चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए एंड वीडियो को लाइक कीजिए ताकि हम आपके लिए और भी बेहतर पॉडकास्ट ला सकें. एंजॉय द शो. Welcome to Curious Minds, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You headed the Internal Audit and Risk Assurance Department in the RBI for more than 3 decades. So normally I used to call it as a RBI internal watchdog.
Yeah, something more than that, because he is the only Chief General Manager who directly reports to the Governor. Does not report to any Deputy Governor or Executive Director.
Okay.
He directly reports to the Governor and highlights the deficiencies in the working of the departments to the Governor.
Okay. क्या सबसे कॉमन रिस्क रहते हैं आरबीआई में जो नॉर्मल पब्लिक दे आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ?
The biggest risk is what RBI may do. You never know. So which is called as the big picture risk. Like what RBI may do when Corona happened. It was a big risk for the entire country, but it was a big risk for the banking system also. So nobody thought RBI will come and give an amnesty for 5 months for repayment of loans. So when you give a repayment of loans, amnesty for 5 months, people are suddenly taken aback. What shall we do? Because RBI realized that businesses were closed. Activity was not happening. So how do the people repay the loans? Many people are not even able to attend the office. So some of them did not get salaries. How they will repay the EMI for the home loans? So the big picture risk is always the risk of things not exactly working out the way you plan them to be or you expect them to. Like today, if you talk of the risk, the biggest risk which the RBI is facing or the country is facing is geopolitical risk. You don't know which part of the world may flare up. I mean, because Ukraine, Russia, still the war is not ending. Nothing is ending in the Middle East, like Lebanon and Israel crisis is still going on. In the meanwhile, you had some problem in Indonesia and Thailand. Then you had problem between Venezuela and US. The skies being closed and all.
आरबीआई को कैसे अफेक्ट हो सकता है? समझो कि आज रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर है या
The point of impact is the inflation.
Okay.
And the supply chain management issues. See, today the global supply chain is the keyword. It is not dependent only on one country or one geography. You are dependent on the entire globe. So the whole world is an interconnected place. It is also interdependent. So today nobody can say I am totally independent. So that's why in that context we must see our beloved Prime Minister Narendra Modiji's call for Aatmanirbhar Bharat. To the extent possible, we should be self-reliant, and we are actually well poised for that, because right from day one, our economy is based on the domestic issues of rural India, talukas, districts, and that is the reason why we were able to handle Corona very successfully, because everything got localized.
True.
Otherwise, no other country was able to handle it, because they all have a highly centrally dominated political system. In India, it is the other way around. We go from bottom to top.
Top, correct.
We don't go from top to bottom. So, these are the kind of risks that face the Indian economy, and whatever faces the Indian economy will be a challenge for the RBI.
Any कोई ऐसी situation which change your mind, your perception towards seeing the Indian banking system?
It happened sometime in 1991 when the first set of economic reforms, as we call it, liberalization,
LPG.
started. Liberalization,
privatization,
globalization. Because what happened is, at that time, the Japanese banking system was going through a big crisis. And that was mainly led by the overexposure of Japanese banks to real estate. So they constituted what is called as the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision, which gave the norms for what should be the capital adequacy framework for banks. Otherwise, till 1988-89, if you read the Global Bankers magazine, the top 10 banks, you will find always Japanese banks. But 1992 onwards, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision came with an accord which is called as the Capital Adequacy Accord, which is called as Basel Accord 1, which said that you must have a capital adequacy of at least 8% to the risk-weighted assets. In India, we adopted that in 1994, and we said, because our data basis is not very strong and very robust, so we made it 9%, the capital adequacy framework. Globally it was 8%, so we made it 9%. So this really was the trigger which changed the Indian banking scene. And the second big change that happened was in 2015-16, when we started consolidating all the public sector banks to make them only 4 or 5 big banks. Because when you say that you are going to be the third or the fourth largest economy in the world, in every sector you must have at least something which is the top 3 or top 4th in the world. Your bank must be in the top 10 banks in the world. Your airlines must be in the top 10 airlines in the world.
Correct.
Your hotels must be in, otherwise you can't say that I have nothing big but I am still third largest economy.
True.
Although it's a compliment to the MSME sector and to the small enterprises, small people. But you also need to be significantly present in major areas of economic activities.
True. क्या आपको लगता है आज भी जापानीज बैंक डोमिनेट करती है वर्ल्ड में?
No, all the banks are in bad shape today.
All the banks.
All the banks. See, the problem is, in 1992, the Japanese interest rate came down to 0% officially. And till today it is at that level. So if you ask me the reason why, because we always believe that low interest rates means more consumption. But that is always accompanied by the underlying principle that it depends on the composition of the population. Japan has a senior citizen population of 46%. So when you have a senior citizen population of more than 40%, if I reduce interest rates, my only worry is how do I protect my income.
जापानीज में एक कंसेप्ट है ना नेगेटिव इंटरेस्ट रेट का, वो क्या रहता है?
Negative interest rate is, it was actually started in Switzerland. That is, if I put 100 rupees in a bank, when I get back the principal on maturity, I'll get back only 98.
Okay. And say when I take loan from the bank,
you have to still pay the market rate, because there's no linkage between the negative interest, because the banks are saying we are providing you security of funds.
But why bank will do or motivate negative interest rate?
Well, if there's no lending, how do you make money?
Okay.
See, one big thing is, for banks to make money, your investment activity, the capital market activity and the lending market, all must be performing well. If there's no lending happening, tomorrow suppose RBI also brings down the interest rate to 1%. Yesterday they brought it down to 5.25 from 5.5.
5.5, yes.
Suppose they bring it down further. One thing is, there's a section of people who will be happy. The interest rates have come down. Because we still have a young population which is still believing in borrowing to make houses, to buy cars and all that. But say 50 years down the line, when our society also becomes like the Japanese society, our senior citizens will be worried about protecting their income. So what I'll do, I'll forego expenditure and I'll save more money.
Okay.
This is what has happened in Japan. This is what is actually the
True.
problem faced by, and same problem is today being faced by the countries in Europe, European Union. See, when you are focused excessively on unbelievable welfare measures for the population, who will bear the cost? Today the young generation in these advanced countries is asking, it is for your benefit, why should we pay the loan which was taken for benefiting you?
करेक्ट. क्या आपको लगता है कि आज अमेरिका की सिचुएशन एक डिप्रेशन में है बिकॉज
See, I'll tell you, I read some book about how the journey from slavery to slavery happens. And that is the stage where America is today. Because when you have affluence, when you become economically super rich, you tend to negate yourself from certain basic activities of human living. So today, if you are looking at illegal immigrants, Trump is saying they will not be allowed and all that. The question average American asks is, why should I clean my toilet?
करेक्ट.
So let the illegal immigrant come and do it for me.
How American government is running, because American country is running, because the government is shut down for last more than 2 months.
No, it is over now. Shutdown is over now. The agreement has been reached in the Senate and the House of Representatives. The shutdown is over now. But the point is, that is the beauty of democracy. Of the American democracy. Why America is an ideal democracy is because even the government can shut down. You try and do it in a country like India, it won't happen. You rather borrow and pay the salaries of the government staff rather than shutting it off and telling them to go home. Because there is a social safety nets are very strong. Even if you are unemployed, suddenly unemployment insurance will kick in. Your medical is free. Although it is not working in the exact desired fashion as it should work. Today the American healthcare system, which is based on mediclaim insurance, is actually in bad shape. That's why they have to shut down programs like Obamacare and all that.
क्या इम्पैक्ट हो, समझो कोई गवर्नमेंट आज शट डाउन हो गई तो उन कंट्री के लिए क्या इम्पैक्ट हो सकता है?
Country के लिए क्या, how will people spend? See, your entire economic revival is based on consumption and spending. If I shut down and if I tell you you are not going to get your salary, how will you spend? And why will you spend? You will not borrow and spend. And if you don't borrow, the banking activity is going to come down. So when the banking activity comes down, the banks will lower the interest rate so much that people will not be interested in putting money in banks for deposits.
शटडाउन के टाइम पे प्रेसिडेंट के पास कोई पावर रहते हैं या फिर दे ट्रांसफर टू द सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ द कंट्री?
No. See, shutdown is an administrative exercise. The moment the budget is not sanctioned for additional expenditure for running the government, and you know that there is no sanction of the Senate or the House of Representatives, shutdown automatically kicks in.
Okay.
So there is no presidential order that is required for shutdown. In fact, no president will do it. So it is a process. So that's why in India also, if you look at it, the budget comes in two parts. The first part, as soon as the budget is presented, they will go for a first vote on account. That vote on account gives the government leeway for 2-3 months to run the expenditure for the next financial year. Suppose there was no vote on account or approval of the parliament to spend the money, no government servant would have got his pension or salary. Because you need to have a proper sanction in place. And the sanctioning authority is the elected house of the people.
Correct, true. Have you been part of the budget somewhere?
No, not that, but around the budget time, what happens is when the budget session of the parliament is on, a lot of questions come to the finance minister, starred questions. And the starred questions normally require a briefing by RBI officials to the finance minister. Because starred questions have the capacity of generating more questions. Every starred question can generate in turn 3-4 questions on the subject. So the finance minister always would like to be briefed by the executives of RBI on starred questions. So in that way, I have been associated with the budget session of the parliament, and during the question hour, finance minister requests RBI officials to stay back in the gallery, so that if there is any clarification required, we are there to help with the papers.
क्या पैनल्स रहती है, कितने लोग रहते हैं बजट में? समझो कि अभी फर्स्ट फेब में बजट आएगा तो कितने महीने पहले they start preparing those budgets?
See,
और क्या finance-
it starts in sometime in, it now comes on 1st of January, 1st of February it comes. So the process starts sometime in October. First it starts with the expected flows of incomes to the government. There is dividends from public sector, profit transferred by RBI, then collection of GST, then devolvement of share of GST to the states, how much is the outgo. So all those estimates are prepared based on the trends for the first 6 months. And then there are discussions held with different stakeholders. Like industry stakeholders are there, banking stakeholders, discussions are held with everyone. And the finance minister tries to ascertain what is the expectation of different stakeholders in the budget. What do they expect? And Government of India budget is one where we normally say, cut your coat according to the cloth. But the Government of India budget, or for that matter any government's budget, the expenditure is first fixed, then you work out on the sources of revenue.
मैंने कहीं पढ़ा था जहाँ पे लिखा था कि जब बजट प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट होता है जो उसमें RBI गवर्नर्स, IAS ऑफिसर्स, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, CBDT, दे आर ऑल द पार्ट ऑफ द एंटायर पैनल ऑफ द बजट. एंड उसमें था कि वहाँ से कोई लोग बाहर नहीं जा सकते, पूरे कॉन्फ्रेंस बंद रूम रहता है. Is it true that?
That is about the budget itself when it is being printed, when it is proofread and all that. Otherwise discussions always happen with the RBI governor and all because he is next to the finance minister in the hierarchy of things. He is in the rank of the Minister of State. So the finance minister can always call up the RBI governor for advice on any of the matters. Maybe it is related to budget or not budget. So what you are saying is true about the printing part of the budget, that nobody is allowed to go out and all. But that happens very fast now because most of the members of parliament have been given tabs and they get the budget in the soft copy form. So that it was printed and brought and all. Only to complete the formality, they do it. Otherwise there is what is called as the Halwa ceremony.
क्या रहता है वो हलवा सेरेमनी?
They prepare the shiro बना हुआ था. They prepare the halwa and distribute it. And then the printed budget is read out for proof.
क्या लॉजिक रहता है हलवा सेरेमनी का?
कुछ नहीं, it has been continuing. That kadai and all is there right from the British days. So the same thing is.
So we are following that only.
Yeah.
Okay, great. क्या अर्ली वार्निंग सिग्नल्स रहते एक बैंक में जिसे पता चल सके कि बैंक्स विल बी इन बैड शेप एंड दे वोंट एडमिट पब्लिकली?
See, for the early warning signals, RBI has come out with what is called as a prompt corrective action, PCA. So prompt corrective action, they work on 3 parameters. One is the gross level of NPAs, second is profitability, the trend in profitability, and third is the capital adequacy. So gross NPAs means your total NPAs and how much you have been able to provide, that is the provision you have made for NPAs. So if your gross NPAs is high and your provision is not adequate to cover that, it means you are carrying more non-performing assets on your balance sheet. So if your non-performing assets are carrying on your balance sheet, your profitability will be adversely impacted. And the moment you are carrying non-performing assets and profitability is adversely impacted, it means your capital adequacy is going to be in danger. Because these assets will not be valued at the same value on which you are holding them at the book.
Do you believe that NPAs are still understated in India?
Not really. Because the point is, these days the reporting happens on a system generated NPA level. Earlier that was possible when it was manually done and all that. Now most of the banks, almost all the banks including RBI, have migrated to core banking solution. And the core banking solution itself provides for recognition of NPAs based on the performance parameters, that is repayment of the loans. So RBI also carries out the review of asset quality based on system generated NPAs and not manually generated NPA figures.
Does any bank collapse due to the NPA? Largest कोई भी बैंक अगर आपको बताऊं?
I'll tell you, in the history of banking, anything can happen overnight. So there was a big bank in the US which is called the Intercontinental. So when that collapsed, the concept of too big to fail came up. It was a big bank, too big bank to fail. So we are also, RBI is also working on the concept of too big to fail. Like tomorrow, suppose something happens to SBI, what will be its impact on the economy in India. Suppose something happens to ICICI Bank, what will be its impact on the economy in India? So RBI also works with these kind of, so that's why there is continuous monitoring of these banks, and every quarter there is a review carried out. And not just the inspection and audit, RBI also works with the banks on the offsite surveillance returns. So each bank is to submit surveillance returns on an offsite basis. So the data on that surveillance module is worked out with the bank in terms of each bank has been assigned to a senior officer in the RBI as the risk supervisor.
पूरा automated process है.
There are about 10-12 senior supervisor risk managers.
Okay.
So each one of them has got SBI, one of them has got 2 small banks. So like that there are 10-12 senior SSMs, they call them, senior supervisory managers. So they are individually responsible for each bank. So every day anything happening which is out of the world or out of context with that particular bank, or which has come in by way of exception in the reporting format, those things are discussed with that bank. So the supervisory system is also becoming robust. And now added to that, the RBI has also introduced the artificial intelligence module for the supervisory effort. So there will be certain parameters given on the core banking solution platform. So the entire core banking platform of the bank is directly connected to the AI tool of the RBI. So the questions that the AI throws out, they are asked to the bank. Did you do this? Did this happen? So that's how it works. But it's the human element of analytics cannot be underplayed. Human element in analytics, even if it's AI driven, you cannot underplay the human analytical effort.
True. AI will not change humans, but humans without knowledge of AI will definitely got scrapped out.
See, AI is nothing but a program.
Correct.
Like we developed COBOL, we developed Fox Pro. Similarly, AI. So your human intelligence has to reach a level where you are able to find out the mistakes committed by AI. Because AI will only give solutions or scenarios based on what it has been asked to judge. What you have predetermined, like this is the scenario. Like 1994, when typical thing like happened in US, there was a very big security firm called Long-Term Capital Management, LTCM. And they hired some of the best brains, some of the Nobel laureates and all, to work out a probability model of what will be the risk of failure of this particular model and all that. So they worked out a model and said that if all these things come together, then their loss will be so much. And the likelihood that all these things will come together is once in 300 years.
Okay.
So they put out that kind of a model. But you may not believe that the day the model was put out, within 1 week of that event occurred thrice in a single day. And the long-term capital management company had to be bailed out by the US administration with a package of $14 billion.
Wow. Great.
So same thing can happen to AI. So that's why people are cautious. And recently, you look at the way things have happened in Google and all that. AI also, the bubble has perhaps burst.
Do you think government will take action to stop the AI in future somewhere in around upcoming
decades? What happens is, it is a tool. It is a tool. You can only warn people. It is like putting statutory warning on cigarette packet. So I can only ask the companies to say that please put a warning. This is AI generated graphic. This is AI generated video. That government is already doing it. But how much to believe? Like if you go to the YouTube, you will always find Rahul, Gandhi, Nirmala Sitharaman, all of them saying invest 22,000 rupees now and you will get back 1,50,000 after 22 years or something like that. That is a fake video. No FM or no leader of opposition will go on air to say invest so much and you will get back so much. So the government regulations and requirements may go to the extent of prescribing something, but they cannot totally ban it.
अमेरिका ने प्रेसिडेंट डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प ने एक बार ट्वीट किया था कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज अ डेड इकोनॉमी. डू यू बिलीव दिस?
If it was dead economy, how it will grow at 8.2%?
But our opposition, Rahul Gandhiji, is also.
No, see, they just, you have to believe, and 8.2% based on what? You look at where the market is, the stock market. Do you think the stock market people are fools who have put crores of rupees in the Indian market? See, they have made more than 17% on an average for the last 5 years.
True.
So, if the economy is not growing at 8.2%, 8.2% is the real growth after adjustment for inflation. The nominal growth is around 12%. So, when you say 8.2%, and this is the data that has come at the end of September, come end of December quarter, you will find the full impact of the cut in GST reflecting. So, 8.2% may sustain even in the next quarter.
Okay. Great. Coming to that previous question, does bank hide bad loans?
They try to, but they cannot. They try to.
Just explain.
No, see, like your loan has not performing, the loan is not performing, you are not able to repay. So what do? Suppose I say there is a concept called greening, evergreening. Evergreening in the sense I will sanction a new loan and use that loan to repay the earlier loan. What you have done effectively? You are going to show it in your book as a new loan.
Okay.
But what you have used it for? You have used it to repay the old loan. So, but all these things have been plugged by the guidelines issued by the Reserve Bank of India to the banks, saying evergreening will not be tolerated. So, people try to
evergreening detect करने के लिए?
You know, see, if a loan has been sanctioned new and how the disbursement has happened.
Okay.
If I sanction you a home loan, have you used it to repay the builder? Have you used it to buy the material if you are building yourself? Have you used it to buy steel, cement, paint, electrical fittings? So, there is an end use that is to be seen by way of disbursement that happens. If the disbursement is just a book entry that I am closing the old loan and sanctioning a new loan, that is a more than proof for evergreening.
कोई ऐसा AI टूल है जिससे पता चल सके कि बैंक will face a crisis like situation in upcoming futures?
A tool can be developed, but do you know all the situations? Because AI tool works with a lot of data points. So you need to have all those data points, and you must have a very strong and robust data warehouse. Give the context. And Indian economy, the context is changing every 10 years. Because what was true in 1975 may not be true today. Because 1975, 1985 we were a highly regulated economy. Everything was in the government sector. Today we are in the open economy, transparent, more free markets, more competitive markets. So today the situation is different. So if I try to put today's situation in 1975, I will not get a proper solution for that.
करेक्ट. अभी एक न्यूज़ आ रही है ना बीच में कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज थिंकिंग टू पास द बिल इन दिस विंटर सेशन कि जो एटॉमिक एनर्जी है दे विल गेट इट इनटू द प्राइवेटाइजेशन.
It's already happened because when you open space sector to the private, nuclear energy is what? Because ultimately what happens is when you are putting so much of investment, public money, you must also look at what return you are generating.
But do you believe this that should happen? Otherwise, क्योंकि पूरा जो न्यूक्लियर सेक्टर है वो गवर्नमेंट के कंट्रोल में है. इफ से दे विल डू इट प्राइवेटाइजेशन द एंटायर decision making will go to the private sector.
Not that. See, point is it requires huge amount of investment. How many people do you think will come forward to set up nuclear reactors? Because it just doesn't come by way of a manufacturing facility. It comes with a lot of cost benefit analysis for the environmental issues, for the safety issues. Like if you want to go and have a look at how it is actually done, you must go to Tarapur, the Tarapur Atomic Power Station, and see how the villages are being monitored, how the surveys are being carried out. Because any single news of a leak of radioactive element from that can be a source of disaster.
लेकिन इंडिया की जो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज है लाइक टाटा, बिरला, अंबानी, वो लोग तो कर सकते हैं ना.
Very difficult. Because point is when they do it, the gestation period is very high. You will require about 5-6 years to build the plant, and you will require about 6-7 years to generate profit from that. See, it is a welcome addition to the non-renewable sector of the energy, green energy as we call it. But if I am having adequate sunlight, today we have beaten our own expectation of records. In 2030 we said we will reach 75 gigawatts of solar energy. We have reached it in 2025.
Okay.
So wind energy, solar energy, these will be the sources of non-fossil fuels. And fossil fuels also, our drilling exercise is continuing. The news that lot of oil reserves have been found near Andaman. We hope it turns out to be true.
Is it true that many frauds happened small but go unnoticed for several years?
See, the fraud is how many people are involved in that.
बैंक के अंदर के जो लोग हैं वो they are involved.
Without involvement of the people inside, it cannot happen. Because somebody has to be there within the system. Because bank accounting is such that you can postpone the detection of a fraud, but you cannot totally conceal it or avoid it.
कैसे इन्वॉल्वमेंट रहता है, क्या क्या हायरार्कीज रहती है? समझो मुझे आज कोई बहुत बड़ा फ्रॉड कर रहा है या
See, it can be that I have sent a check for clearing, but I delay in crediting the money to the customer's account. But the customer can always come back and say, I deposited the check 3 days back. And इसलिए अभी Reserve Bank has changed the rules, saying now within 2 hours you must get the credit intimation.
करेक्ट.
So all these areas, like it can be inoperative accounts होते हैं बैंक में बहुत सारे. How do you know that the person who has started his operations in the account again is the actual person to whom the account belongs? So these are the areas of frauds, and that's why RBI keeps on telling जानकार बनिए सुरक्षित रहिए.
In your entire journey, what is the most common, or I will say, what is the most shocking fraud mechanism you have heard or you have come across?
See, every fraud is a shock, but the point is how people can be ingenious.
क्या क्या टाइप्स रहते हैं फ्रॉड्स के बेसिकली?
Fraud, basically, it is a kind of fraud by what you can say estoppel, that you are pretending that you are the person, but you are not. Like these days, it has become very popular that somebody goes and poses himself as a police inspector or as a RBI official, and demands money and all that.
जैसे शेल कंपनीज हम बनाते वैसा.
Shell company is a different concept altogether. Shell companies are basically what you can say, in a table you will find 300-400 companies addresses, letterheads.
True.
Okay, so shell companies operating within that small environment. And shell companies were very famous in one particular street in Calcutta. Each table had about 40-50 companies letterheads in that. Each table.
Our Indian banks are today equipped with the digital to detect the frauds?
See, even digitally fraud is possible also. But you have to keep on working on the vigilance part of it. People have to be vigilant, the employees have to be vigilant. Like a small case, ATM. When the ATM started in India, there was no concept of the cash lying in the bin. Retractment was possible. So we said, if the cash is lying unclaimed, it will not go back to the ATM bin. It will lie there. And we instructed the banks to put CCTV cameras to find out who has lifted the cash. And today the instructions to the banks are that all these recordings will be preserved for 90 days. Should anybody come up with a claim saying, and a funny thing happened. We detected a complaint, we received a complaint from a person. I had gone to ATM 5 times. 5 times the machine says it dispensed cash, but I did not get the cash. Then we asked the bank to give us the video recording.
How do you tackle all these complaints?
We asked for the video recording. Then in the video recording, we saw that after this man had withdrawn, there was to be a lady in a burqa or a parda coming up and taking the cash. So we got a police specialist involved in the team. So he said, let me see the videos again. So then in one video he said, this is the man who has withdrawn the money, who is taking the cash in the form of a lady by wearing a burqa and a parda. How did you recognize? He said, look at the hair on his hand. A lady will not have so much hair on her hand. That's how they located it, and that's why tools are getting. That's why now we say banks will never call you on the phone to check your KYC. There is a big fraud that is happening, and you don't know. Somebody will give you the email, like you try to log into that, you will get into some other address. That's why we always say, if the bank is calling, you call back the number, and you will come to know whether it is a bank or somebody else. Never accept a call which is not on your contact list. That will be my personal advice to all my good friends.
You were the part of demonetization that happened.
It happened after I retired, but I knew what was the mechanics they had adopted.
Do you
for
believe
them.
that it was the failure of the government?
Not that. See, the point is, how do you look at the entire situation in the context of domestic economy and foreign economies both? There was one big challenge which India was facing, and that was the forgery of our currency by not very helpful neighbors. So when demonetization happened, two things you will find. Why the Bangladesh economy, why the Pakistan economy, why the Sri Lankan economy collapsed?
That was the reason.
Because they were not doing anything else other than faking our currency.
वो तो आज भी होता होगा ना.
Very difficult because it's very expensive. And that's why RBI works with the government on the design of the notes. See, when Gandhi's face was taken to be in the currency notes, it was after a long bit of forensic research and all that. They said this is a very difficult face to fake.
इसकी वजह से उनका फोटो है.
There is a lot of forensic work that has gone into that.
Okay.
It's not for fun that we have Gandhi's photo in the currency
I think
notes.
people have thought that he's the father of the nation. That's why we used to.
We tried everything. We tried Dr. Ambedkar, we tried Nehru, with different leaders, Netaji, to suit different currency, different denominations, different years and all that. But Gandhi's face was one which was very difficult to fake.
Have you ever met our Prime Minister
Yeah, I met him.
personally?
Yes, personally.
What was experience?
Excellent human being and very, very devoted to human causes, and he will do anything to help human beings. I was in Reserve Bank of India in 1985. He came to the RBI counter just to check up why there was delay in processing the claims of people who had come with soiled notes. So we explained to him the problem, and that time RBI did not have its own currency printing press. Today RBI has got its own currency printing press at two locations, in Mysore in Karnataka and in Salboni in West Bengal.
In 1980, I think he was just a karyakarta of the BJP something.
Till 1990 he was a Karyakarta of the RSS.
Okay.
In 1990 he was absorbed into the BJP hierarchy as the in charge of the BJP's wing in Himachal and Haryana. That's why he moved to Himachal and Haryana.
And how did he come back to Gujarat again?
In 2001, Mr. Vajpayee decided that he should be the chief minister after the riots.
Okay. So I think so he became the chief minister of Gujarat before Godhra was happened. No?
Yeah, just a few months before that.
Do you believe that India will become the third largest economy?
He is already on the way to becoming. See, there are two things. One is nobody can match your population size for consumption. There is no country in the world today which can match you. So when you say 8.2% growth, who are the people supporting this growth? It is a 140 crore people who are supporting this growth. And the consumption is also helped by the well-being, economic well-being of the people. If you look at last 10 years, generally the people have been well off. And that is indicated in different parameters. See, when you have 4 crore people with their own houses, what does it mean? Your aspirations are being aroused. You want to stop only at one house, you want to have a second one. Or you have a house, you want to buy a two-wheeler. You have a two-wheeler, you want to buy a four-wheeler. So this is how the aspirations keep on increasing when the economic well-being of the people changes.
Which policy do you think have done by the government which made India to this?
The main thing is trying to be self-reliant, and it was very ably demonstrated in the Operation Sindoor episode. See, when you totally rely on yourself, especially for a critical item like defense supplies, you develop everything indigenously. BrahMos was indigenously developed, Akash was indigenously developed, S-400 was modified by our Indian engineers. So when all that happened, it gave a message to the world that India has arrived. And that was the perhaps changing point for the world to sit and realize, look at India as a country which has done everything by itself.
अगर आज इंडिया को विकसित भारत बनना है, how do you think how India can compete with the China's market?
See, China market today they are on a downhill path because the population is shrinking.
They are decreasing path.
Yeah, because the population is shrinking. They have curtailed the population. One family, one child. So To sustain consumption, you need population. If I only become rich and if I have nothing to, suppose you have one house now, well, how many houses you want to have?
Do you believe that population will be the biggest asset for becoming a developed nation?
Definitely, because point is, when you manufacture so many things, when will you export, when your domestic demands are met? So when the domestic demand itself is so high, where is the pressure for you to export? In fact, the others are keen on exporting to you.
But say on one hand, if population is increasing, but side by side, if don't have enough demand or supply, or if don't have enough infrastructure equipments, then how will these two balance?
That's why this whole effort of the government is on creating infrastructure. The basic infrastructure is in two parts. One is the physical infrastructure, that is roads, airports, seaports, and then the social infrastructure. Social infrastructure is like your toilets, schools, primary health centers, housing. All these are social infrastructure. So the government has paid adequate attention to creation of social infrastructure. Now when social infrastructure is created, you have to focus on physical infrastructure. The critical issue will come 40-50 years down the line when our population becomes old. Who will pay for the maintenance of this infrastructure? And that is the problem all the advanced countries are facing today. You go to New York, you go to Toronto, you go to Wisconsin, Vancouver and all that. Very huge airports, but no passengers. Who will help maintain the airports and terminals?
So how did this airport sustain?
You are charging more. Okay. And when you charge more, people don't pay for it. People will avoid. And especially after 9/11 in the US, airlines has become a not so fancy way of travel. People have taken to other modes of travel.
You represented India at the IMF while designating a rehabilitation package for Turkey.
Yeah.
क्या था वो पूरा scene?
See, Turkey was always facing a problem because Turkey was always affected by earthquakes. So when you are affected by earthquakes very frequently, you need to spend a lot of money on creating infrastructure, and that infrastructure should be neutral to any natural disaster. And resilient, it should be a resilient infrastructure. And when you want to build resilient infrastructure, it requires a lot of cost. How do you raise the money? Because raising money is one is either you borrow or you tax more. If you tax more, do the people have the income avenues? And even if people have the avenues, are they willing to pay? So based on that, there were 38 countries in that group. I was representing India. So we gave them a package and it worked out well for them. In 20 years time, they were able to come back to their own. Today they are better off than what they were 15 years back.
Okay.
And after that event also they have faced 3 earthquakes. As today still they are better off.
What is your biggest lesson from this role of representing India?
The biggest lesson is that we have to realize that there are very many intelligent people outside the world. Like my friends from Pakistan also were there. Very, very intelligent.
Okay.
So just because they were Pakistanis, I don't have to hate them. They were as intelligent as any of my fellow countrymen could be. So it tells you that people look at the same problem and sometimes you learn things from them in solving a problem which you feel is severe but which according to them can be easily solved. So when you meet people of different countries and different genres, you have to focus on discussing on solutions and not discussing the problems. That's what I learned.
True. Do you notice any similarities between Turkey's issues and India's vulnerabilities today?
Very difficult to compare because Turkey is very small in size. The only common issue, if you want to really ask politically, is in India we tried to create a problem out of the Kashmir issue. In Turkey, similarly, they have a problem with Cyprus.
Okay.
Same issues almost, kind of. Cyprus and Turkey and India and Kashmir. Otherwise, the size-wise, there is no comparison between the two countries.
अभी इंडिया का ग्लोबल लेवल पे क्या फाइनेंशियल सिचुएशन है?
We are better off.
We have improved after 2014?
Yeah, we have improved. We are better off. Today, we are the 4th strongest economy financially in the. If you look at the balance sheet of the Reserve Bank of India and the government's finances, the government, one thing this government is very focused on is discipline in the finance ministry. They even after the COVID, they allowed the fiscal deficit to go to 8%, but now they are focused on getting it back to less than 4.5%. This government is very focused on fiscal discipline and financial, and the biggest reform they did, the by way of GST, that has really worked wonders.
Correct. GST has been the game changing for the government.
GST has worked wonders because if you look at the total collection of GST, it is more than the collection of state
Income
sales tax and
Income tax, yeah.
if you add the sales tax collection of all the states prior to GST
Okay.
and today's figure, that figure is much more, and the states are also happy because they are getting a greater share of the resources from GST.
Where do you see the India's banking system in next decade?
Which should be at the top,
More than America also.
definitely, because American economy is also going the Japanese way because people are becoming aged. People are, see, all these advanced countries have two problems. One is there are no people to work, but they want the work to be done. So the only solution is either you import people or you export work. Even Mr. Donald Trump himself has admitted in an interview that it's very difficult for Americans to get all the skill sets so that they are able to work in all situations, different situations. So today the problem that America, or for that matter Russia, the problem is negative growth in population. Russian population is shrinking. Every day it is shrinking. So when the population is shrinking, why do you invest? And that's why they are able to sell so many things to us at a cheaper rate.
True. Will RBI allow more foreign bank participation?
See, the RBI's view on this is perhaps that it is on a reciprocal basis according to the World Trade Organization agreement. So whatever the foreign countries allow, India will have to allow that. So if foreign countries, if they are doing well, they would allow more Indian banks to open. If they don't allow, if their economies are shrinking, if they don't allow, then there is no question of India opening up its market for foreign banks. Because right now the belief is that we should be allowing them to work on a wholly owned subsidiary model.
Okay.
Not just as branches. And you look at the recent trend, almost all the big foreign banks have cut off their retail operations from India.
True.
Whether it is Barclays, HSBC or Royal Bank of Scotland, all of them have cut out their retail operations from India. They are only into wholesale banking and corporate banking.
Okay. You have worked 7 years in the RBI Treasury also, no? How RBI actually manages India's reserves, liquidity, currency?
See, there is a direction given by the committee, the top level committee, which has people from Ministry of Finance, the RBI top team, the deputy governors, governor and all that. And there's a charter given. The charter tells us what kind of securities, what kind of instruments and what kind of currencies we should be investing in.
Charter means?
The charter means it tells you the parameters.
Okay.
Like it tells you that you will be investing in government securities of other sovereigns for a maturity not more than 10 years.
Okay.
So these kind of parameters are there. So we adhere to those parameters and perform. Then the performance is evaluated for each treasury manager. The performance is evaluated in terms of benchmarks. So the benchmarks are typically what would have been the money market return had you invested the money in money market, say on a 3-month basis or a 6-month basis. So against that, because that return is evaluated against the risk that you take. And then there are internal parameters which are also worked out by the top management, like gold. How much of gold should be bought, that is decided by the government and RBI together. But technically RBI cannot put more than 15% of its gold outside the country. So 85% of the gold has to be held in the country only.
That will increase the gold reserve.
Whatever you have, today we are at around 1100 tons
1100 tons.
gold with the RBI.
Okay.
We are the 4th largest gold holding country in the world today.
Definitely.
Yes.
I was unaware of this.
See, if you look at the personal consumption of gold, if you look at the total import bill of India, the third biggest item after oil, defense, fertilizers is gold. Last year we imported gold to the extent of 900 tons gold imports last year.
Great. How does RBI intervene in the Forex market?
By way of buy and sell. Either it is spot buying and selling
RBI
or...
itself do the trading?
Yeah, we have got a regular dealing room.
Okay.
We either do a spot buying and selling or we typically do swaps for the long term duration or short term duration. Buy sell swaps or sell buy swaps. Depending upon which part of the yield curve you want to impact. Because intervention in foreign currency has 2-3 points to be associated. One is when I say sell dollars, I buy back the rupees. So it should not result in liquidity being strained in the Indian system. Or when I sell dollars, when I buy dollars, I am giving them rupees to the market. So that should not result in increased supply of liquidity to the market, because when the liquidity in the market increases, the interest rates will come down. So is that your desired objective? So there are so many things that go into the decision making while intervening. It's not just that you decide to buy and sell. And frankly, they don't work with any target of saying at this level we will want the rupee or that this level. They never work with that kind of target.
Does RBI try to defend the rupee level?
Very difficult to say, because it's all a function of demand and supply.
Because yesterday you see the dollar just turns to 90.
Yeah, see, when the first level of devaluation happened way back in 1966, when it went to 7 rupees from 5 rupees, people said 40% devaluation. So it keeps happening. It's a matter of demand and supply. So until the time you come to a situation where you have a trade surplus, there will always be demand for dollars, and the demand for dollars is mainly driven by the oil imports.
क्या reason है why it touches 90 right now?
No, because there is no supply. If people want to come and if people are going out of, say, your investment in FI, investment in the stock market, when he goes out, he'll not just sell the stock, he'll also take his dollars away. So there is demand for dollars.
Do you think this will a problematic situation for the country?
Not really, because the point is, today the way we are working with, why so many people are coming to India, why so many people are investing in India, because each of them wants to earn money. Which is a market that gives you a return, they look for that. If American markets were to give them higher return, they would work there. And not all the countries are equally open, and again the consumption story. See, every market player believes in the fact that it is 140 crore people who are driving the demand in the country. And that's what is the baseline of the story, and that will continue to be so for at least next 30 years.
What is your view on Trump's tariff?
Very difficult, because he has got to do something to please his people to make his announcements. But if your economy is totally dependent on a major item of imports, if you put tariffs on export by other countries, that is import by US, then who will pay for the tariff? It is the American citizen who will be paying for it.
No,
so will the American inflation come down or go up? That only time will tell.
No, I am very curious to know that government has a strong conviction that India will not suffer from this tariff.
Correct. Because if you look at it, the trade wise, out of our total exports, only 3% exports are to US. 97% exports are to non-dollar area.
Okay, so we are just decreasing the dependency on dollars.
We are not dependent on dollar at all. We want dollar only to pay for our imports, and that is one of the reasons why there is no supply, because we are not exporting to dollar areas.
Do you believe the dollar will come down to around 70, 65 level in
It
future?
may come to 50 also.
It will become.
It may come to 50 also, because let me tell you, Japanese yen, you look at the classical case. When in 1991, when the Japanese economy was at its top, the Japanese yen to a dollar was 247, and by 1998 it had dropped to 80. So technologically, how competent you remain in the market and how much you invest in your technology and product development will determine how much you will be able to progress. So the main advantage of the Japanese has been the technology advantage, and they had also diversified their investment into China and South Korea. So whether it is South Korea that exported or China that exported, didn't matter, because it was finally the Japanese who were getting the benefit.
How can we dominate the rupee at the global level?
See, point is, you must be globally competitive in terms of trade, and it should be a two-way traffic, volume of trade. Second is your volume of borrowings. You must have adequate resources for people to come and invest in the borrowings that you make. If you become totally self-reliant on by your own terms, Now look at the classic case of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't have any borrowing. They're an oil-rich country. They're all surplus with reserves. They don't have any borrowing. So who will invest in Saudi Arabia? Because they have nothing to offer. So similarly, if China, nobody is willing to invest there because of lack of transparency, lack of democracy. India will be a good case, but we must increase our size of economic activity and we must increase our size of borrowing and allow people to invest in that. Like today, if you look at the American borrowing, almost 70% of the borrowing is funded by China, India and Japan because we have a trade surplus. So if I have a trade surplus in say dollar terms, finally when I convert it, where will I invest it? I have to invest it in dollar area only. I cannot invest dollars in Kuwait or in Arab Emirates,
I have heard that central government most likely intervene in the RBI function. Is it true?
No. See, the consultation always goes on. They will never interfere because the point is, where is the ownership of the decision?
With governor.
The governor. So, which governor will like to take a blame for a decision which was not his?
True. Do you witness any disagreement between RBI and government on
many issues there can be. There can be disagreement.
जैसे कि
हो सकता है भाई प्राइवेटाइजेशन ऑफ बैंक्स में हो सकता है, लिक्विडेशन ऑफ बैंक्स में हो सकता है और इंटरेस्ट रेट के बारे में हो सकता है. गवर्नमेंट को लगता है इंटरेस्ट रेट कम आना चाहिए, बट RBI may not oblige even despite, because RBI waits for conviction by data. See, like today, if the inflation has come down by 1.5%, the reduction in interest rate is only 0.25%. So people can ask the question, could it not have been 0.5%? तो इस बारे में बहस हो सकती है, डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन हो सकता है, बट इट डजंट टेक अवे, एंड दैट्स व्हाई गवर्नमेंट इज आल्सो वेरी कॉशियस बिकॉज दे आल्सो नो दैट टुमारो इफ समथिंग सीवियरली गोज रॉन्ग दे विल बी हॉल्ड अप फॉर इंटरफियरिंग विद ऑटोनोमस बॉडी.
ट्रू, करेक्ट. नॉर्मली दो फॉरेन जो करेंसीज रहती है अपनी इंडिया की, डेट इज प्रिंटेड बाय द RBI, बट जो कॉइन्स रहते हैं डेट इज प्रिंटेड बाय द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस.
Minted, they are minted by the Minister of Finance.
क्या लॉजिक इसके पीछे का?
नहीं, because if you look at the currency notes, there is a promise given by the RBI governor. I promise to pay the bearer of this note value as stated in this. On the coin, where is the promise?
But it is also a point of exchange, no?
It is the money. See, according to the Coinage Act, the Coinage Act gives the power to the government to decide what denomination of coins will be there. Till about 10 years back, it was only 2 rupees maximum. Then they changed it to 5 rupees. Then now they have taken it up to 20 rupees. Coinage. Because coin, what happens is, the life is very long. If you look at a 10 rupee note today, 10 rupee note life is only about 4.5 months. And how much money I spend in printing a 10 rupee note? Because I have to spend on ink, I have to spend on paper, I have to spend on transport. Whereas a coin is about 50-60 times of that life. But coin में एक ही problem होता है, storage. Storage is, RBI, they are not liability of the RBI. So we hold them as assets and we give a space to the government to hold the coins in our chest as a matter of the government's right as our owner to request its banker to hold assets in safe custody. So they are our assets.
जी पूरा प्रोसेस है करेंसी प्रिंटिंग का कैसे होता है, क्या कॉस्ट इन्वॉल्वमेंट रहती है इसमें?
नहीं, सी कॉस्ट इज इमटेरियल बिकॉज इफ यू लुक एट इट टुडे द एंटायर थिंग इज रिवॉल्विंग अराउंड डिजिटल करेंसी. सो इवन द रिजर्व बैंक हैज लॉन्च्ड इट सेंट्रल बैंक CBDC, सेंट्रल बैंक डिजिटल करेंसी. So there are so many factors that are taken into account. One is the GDP growth, second is the local factors depending upon which areas of the economy are asking for more currency. So there is a committee of experts which is having experts from the Indian Statistical Institute or IITs.
Why government doesn't support the cryptocurrency?
There is no concept of a cryptocurrency. They are actually called a virtual digital assets. Currency has basically 3 features. One is currency should be a unit of currency, measurable. If I say 100 rupee note, it is 100 rupees. It has no value lower or higher than that. Secondly, it should be a store of value. If I give you 100 rupee note, it is having a value of 100 rupees stored in it. And thirdly, it must be used as a legal means of settling the claims of each other. Suppose I have taken 100 rupees, 1000 rupees borrowing from you, and I tell you I will give you instead of that 10 dozens of Alfonso mangoes. Will you agree? So instead of that, if I have taken 1000 rupees from you, I give you back 1000 rupees and say this is in satisfaction of your debt.
True.
So any virtual asset or physical asset which does not fulfill these three criteria cannot be a currency.
But foreign countries they are motivating.
They try to put it as currency, but our finance minister has very clearly brought out the definition of virtual digital assets. Because this matter was under examination by Supreme Court. Supreme Court said you cannot ban the participation of people in such assets. So that's why the Government of India in the finance bill 2 years ago, they clarified what was a virtual digital asset. And then the finance minister said, okay, you participate but pay tax on that.
Do you believe that government?
And all these currencies, so-called currencies, they are not currencies. If you look at from where they are floated, they are floated in countries which are very weak in regulation, which don't have a very effective legal system, and which don't have proper enforceability of monetary regulation. You don't find them in all the highly regulated countries like US, UK and India or Japan.
Do you believe that government has done right in removing the online money gaming?
It's a matter of how people look at it. People can still do it. Government may have removed it. People can still do it because government must have the machinery to monitor this.
But ultimately, it is a loss of government. Government will suffer the loss of 27,000 crore GST.
Correct. The point is also look at the state lotteries. Why state governments are not willing to ban state lotteries? Actually, it is nothing but a kind of gaming only. Most of the state lotteries also have migrated to online now. Because it's a question of resources. So, human mind always works with intelligence. So, you will always find, and always mind you, burglary happens first, regulation comes later. So, some regulation may come even in this regard. What it has done, it will always be worried about loss of revenue.
Now, just last question. What would you like to tell to the ordinary person who believes that my money will be safe in the account?
Do your research yourself. Don't rely on tips and don't rely on what your friends have done. Today, if you ask any common man, why you have put your money in this? Because my friend did it. Have you studied it yourself? Even maybe it's a FD with a bank. You must do your own research, do your own study and put the money there. And mind you, it is your money. Tomorrow if you lose it, nobody is going to make it good for you. You have to be worried about your money, you have to make your study, invest it and define a time frame. For what time frame you want to put your money there. You cannot put it as saying infinitely, let it be there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It cannot be that. You have to review, keep on reviewing the situation every 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, 1 year, depending on whatever is your need. And secondly, in terms of the people who are going to be inheriting these treasures, I would request all my friends in the society to kindly prepare a document called the will, telling the next generation how their savings will be shared by the successors, so that the legal issues don't crop up at a time when nobody is. Just to give an example, today the unclaimed deposits with banks which are lodged with the Reserve Bank has crossed the figure of 80,000 crores. Now, is this not a loss to the society? Because these are deposits, but they are not unclaimed. So they cannot be also deployed as loans and advances. This money is lying with the RBI. And it is very difficult for the people because somebody has say opened an account with Dena Bank. Today if he wants to go and find out that Dena Bank is no more there. Dena Bank has merged with Bank of Baroda.
True.
And all these accounts were perhaps opened at a time when there was no core banking solution. So you had no KYC like Aadhaar card or PAN card. You were introduced to the bank branch by somebody who had an account with that bank branch. Today nobody who has worked in that bank branch is alive. So who will identify you? So it becomes a big issue. So kindly prepare a document called the will and properly identify all the financial assets and clearly indicate which asset will go to which person. so that the next generation will be thankful to you for sparing them of lot of litigation and lot of succession issues. That will be my request to all the...
So I believe that become more diligent rather than you should rely on others.
Definitely. Self-reliance.
Just one last, you was in touch with our Prime Minister Modiji. Do you believe that he will become a Prime Minister again 2029?
Depends, because his health is not a problem at all. His health is not a problem at all, and that's why everyone is trying to go with the astrologers or the people who want to predict the future. He'll be, he'll not be. It depends on his health.
But one thing I am sure he is more fit than compared to us.
Because he works on that. He works with yoga, he works with fitness, and he has a very strict diet control. He doesn't waste time in eating too many times, too many things. He avoids oily food. So it depends on his health, and age and all, these are all mentally fed concepts in our mind. When Modiji Desai became Prime Minister, he was already 81. When he became Prime Minister for the first time, he was 81.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he was born on 29th February on a leap year.
Okay.
So when he became Prime Minister, he said, who says I am 81? I am only 20. Because he had celebrated only 20 birthdays.
Correct.
So that's my take on that. You cannot, because constitutionally there is no provision to say somebody should not be, that's why politicians have a difficulty in trying to put a age for retirement is this. Because the People's Representation Act doesn't say, it only tells minimum years of age for which you have to be eligible to become a member of either a legislative assembly or a House of People, Lok Sabha. It doesn't say anything else.
How do you see India's future at the Viksit Bharat, for the Viksit Bharat?
Very great. Nothing wrong.
India will become?
Definitely. Nothing wrong in that, because our biggest asset is our young people. Today, less than 30 years, 65% of our population is less than 30 years. So by the time they retire and all, it will be 30 years from now. So that there will be addition to the younger population even by that time. It may not be in the same number as it is today, but there will be definite addition.
Our Prime Minister is continuously motivating for the youth to join the youth in the politics. How do you see this?
It's a good thing. That should happen, because the point is, there are two things. One is politics for service or politics for self. Unless you demonstrate that you are doing politics for service, people will not be convinced. Because today you look at any of the people, how the people have remained deprived of basic things. Like in 1969, banks were nationalized with a view to get more and more people in the banking fold. But actually in 2014 only 56 crore bank accounts were opened, where they were not opened earlier. So this gives you a small idea as to why people should enter politics. It's not just for being in power. You have to be first ready to serve, and then you can be in power.
I always believe that if you do Rajniti, you will become politician. But if you do Ranniti, then you will become the people's...
See, Niti is more important. Rana or Raj. Niti is important. नियत सही है तो अपना नतीजा भी सही आ जाता है. नियत ही सही नहीं है तो फिर नतीजा कहीं सही आने का सवाल ही नहीं होता है.
True.
नियत सही होनी चाहिए आपकी.
True. Thank you so much, sir, for this insight.
My pleasure. It was a pleasure was mine.
How do you feel? You enjoy?
Thoroughly. I hope the listeners also will enjoy.